All right, so we're back and ready to dive in. This time we're taking a look at Chapter 3, A Glimmer of Light from the Lone Capsuleer.
Ooh, that title already have me intrigued.
Right, and it's especially interesting considering the setting for this chapter, Nullsec.
Ah, yes, Nullsec.
For anyone who might not be familiar, think like the farthest reaches of space where there's basically zero law and order.
Like the Wild West, but in space.
Exactly. And in this chapter, we follow Vaylin Kord, a seasoned capsuleer who prefers to, well, keep to himself out there.
Now, when you say Capsuleer,
Oh, right. Capsuleers are essentially immortal spaceship pilots. They can transfer their consciousness into these cloned bodies, so death isn't really the end for them.
fascinating. So even in the vastness of space, there's this element of, like, human resilience or maybe even defiance.
I think that's a great way to put it. And that resilience is definitely put to the test in Nullsec. So Vaylin, he's flying solo in his Stratios.
Stratios. Now, that's a ship that tells us a lot about him, right?
Absolutely. The Stratios is known for its versatility, especially in electronic warfare. It's not just about brute force, but about outsmarting your opponents.
Which makes sense for a lone wolf like Vaylin. You have to
Yep.
be prepared for anything and everything out in Nullsec.
Exactly. So as Vaylin is navigating this treacherous region, he stumbles upon a wreck station and picks up a distress signal. Now, normally,
You just keep flying, right?
you would think, especially in Nullsec, a distress signal could easily be a trap.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the oldest trick in the book.
But there's something about this particular signal, the voice of the pilot, Aeliana Soren, that gives him pause.
So what is it about her plea that gets through to him?
That's what's so intriguing. The author doesn't just tell us what Vaylin does, but also what he's thinking.
Ah, so we get this internal conflict.
Yeah, like he's surprised at himself for even considering it. He spent so long trusting no one, relying only on himself.
And now he's faced with this choice. Ignore the call and stay safe, or risk everything for a complete stranger.
And it makes you wonder about Eliana too, right? What kind of person is she? Why is she out in Nullsec in the first place?
Because from what you've said, she's young, she's new to this whole thing, and it sounds like she might be a little bit in over her head.
Yeah, she's definitely come to Nullsec with certain expectations, probably drawn by those stories of freedom and fortune.
Which often don't match up with the reality, especially in a place like this.
Sadly not. But you're right, her character really highlights the contrast between the idealized version of Nullsec and the harsh truth of it.
Almost like a cautionary tale woven into this larger narrative.
And it creates this interesting dynamic between her and Vaylin, who represents that jaded, experienced side of Nullsec.
It's like she's reminding him of what he used to be, before the harsh realities of Nullsec wore him down.
Right. And the crazy thing is, he actually goes for it.
Yeah.
He decides to help her.
Wow, really? So he throws caution to the wind.
In a way, yeah. He approaches her battered frigate in his Stratios and manages to transfer some emergency power.
Oh, that's interesting. So even in this dire situation, the author doesn't skimp on the technical details.
Yeah, it's implied that he uses some kind of focused energy beam to jumpstart her failing systems.
I love that it keeps the story grounded in this believable yet futuristic world.
But, of course, a damaged ship in Nullsec is like a giant neon sign that says, "Easy target over here."
Oh yeah, it's only a matter of time before trouble shows up.
And wouldn't you know it, just as he gets Eliana safely aboard his ship, his scanners light up. A pirate fleet drawn by the same distress signal is on its way.
Talk about terrible timing. You got to feel for Vaylin here.
Right, he tries to do the right thing, and suddenly he's caught in this even more dangerous situation.
And Aeliana too. She's gone from being stranded in a wrecked ship to being trapped with this stranger as they try to evade pirates.
It's like the stakes just got exponentially higher.
And it really highlights the constant danger that permeates Nullsec. It's always there, lurking just beneath the surface.
So Vaylin, being the skilled pilot he is, utilizes the cover of the wreck station and the debris field to try and avoid detection.
Now, this is where the Stratios really comes in handy, right?
Absolutely. It has a cloaking device that makes it invisible to enemy scanners, at least for a short while.
Ah, so it becomes this high-stakes game of hide and seek.
And the way the author describes it, you really get a sense of the tension, the claustrophobia inside the Stratios as they're weaving through this debris field.
But Vaylin's not panicking.
Yeah.
He's using his knowledge of the battlefield, anticipating the pirates' movements, using the wreckage as both a shield and a distraction.
Yeah, it shows how in Nullsec, experience can be just as valuable as any weapon or technology.
And it's a valuable lesson for Aeliana, who's watching all this unfold right before her eyes.
I can't even imagine what must be going through her mind. She's gone from facing death alone to witnessing this incredible display of skill and cunning.
It's a crash course in nullsec survival, taught by one of his most experienced veterans.
And for Vaylin, he's now responsible for her safety. And that's got to weigh on him, especially considering his usual every capsuleer for themselves attitude.
It's a turning point for him, isn't it? This rescue isn't just about helping a stranger. It's forcing him to confront something deeper within himself.
Exactly. And that's what makes this chapter so compelling. We see these two characters, both at different points in their journey, brought together by circumstance.
And their paths are now intertwined. It makes you wonder how this encounter will ultimately change them both.
Will Vaylin retreat back into his solitary shell, or will this experience open him up in some way?
And what about Aeliana? Will she be hardened by this experience, or will she manage to hold on to some of her idealism?
Those are some great questions, and that's where we'll leave off for now. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, could this be a turning point for Vaylin?
I think it has to be, right? I mean, he's already gone against his usual instincts by helping Aeliana.
Yeah, and now he's stuck with her, trying to escape this pirate fleet.
Which, speaking of, the author does an amazing job of conveying the tension of that escape.
Oh, absolutely. Like, you can practically feel the claustrophobia inside the Stratios.
Right. They're surrounded by this debris field, constantly checking the scanners, every blip a potential threat.
And all this while they're cloaked, so it's this eerie silence inside the ship.
Yeah, it's like that calm before the storm, you know? You just know something's going to happen.
And for Aeliana, imagine being in her shoes. She's gone from facing death alone in her wrecked frigate to being trapped in this silent, invisible ship.
With a guy she knows nothing about.
Exactly. Talk about a crash course in nullsec survival.
This is like the ultimate test of her trust, right? She has to rely entirely on Vaylin, this complete stranger, to get them out of this mess.
And it's interesting because, in a way, she's seeing a side of nullsec that most newcomers never do.
Oh, for sure. She's witnessing firsthand the kind of skill and cunning it takes to survive out there.
Not the romantic freedom and fortune she probably imagined, huh?
Not even close. And it makes you wonder how it's changing her perspective.
Right. Is she starting to see Vaylin as, like, a role model? Or is she just terrified and wishing she'd never come to nullsec in the first place?
Well, considering they're still alive, I'm guessing she's at least a little impressed with his piloting skills.
Definitely. And Vaylin, he's not just flying. He's teaching her in his own way.
Ah, like that gruff mentor figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's this one line after they manage to slip away from the pirates. Aeliana tries to thank him, and he just says, "Learn. Survive. That's how you thank me."
Classic Vaylin. Straight to the point, no time for sentimentality.
Right. But it's more than just being harsh. It's like he's giving her a challenge, saying, don't just be grateful, prove that you can learn from this, that you can survive.
It's almost a backhanded compliment, like, I see potential in you, kid, don't waste it.
Yeah, and it speaks volumes about Vaylin's character. Deep down, he wants to help her, but he doesn't want to make it easy for her.
It's like he's pushing her to become stronger, to earn her place in this unforgiving world.
And maybe, just maybe, he's starting to realize that helping someone isn't a weakness.
It's a good point. Maybe this whole encounter is actually challenging his own worldview, forcing him to confront those walls he's built up around himself.
Yeah, because, let's be real, he could have easily just ignored that distress signal and kept flying.
Absolutely. But he didn't. And now, both of their lives are forever changed.
It's like that glimmer of light we talked about earlier, you know? It's shining through the darkness, not just for Aeliana, but for Vaylin, too.
That's a really interesting thought. It's like this whole situation is forcing them both to confront who they are, what they believe in.
And how far they're willing to go for, well, connection, I guess.
Because let's be honest, they're both pretty lonely out there in Nullsec.
And they're finding solace, or at least some kind of understanding, in each other.
Which makes their journey even more compelling, doesn't it? Because now it's not just about survival.
It's about something more. It's about finding a way to exist in this harsh, unforgiving world without losing that essential part of yourself.
That spark of humanity.
Exactly. And that's something we can all relate to, even if we're not spaceship pilots facing down pirate fleets. You know, it's amazing how, even in a place as ruthless as Nullsec, these little moments of humanity can shine through.
It really makes you think about the resilience of the human spirit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even when faced with overwhelming darkness.
It's like Vaylin, even though he's this hardened, solitary figure, he can't completely escape that innate desire for connection.
Especially now that he's seen how Aeliana, this newcomer with all her idealism, reacts to the harsh realities of Nullsec.
It's almost like she's holding up a mirror to him, reflecting a part of himself that he'd buried deep down.
And it's not like he suddenly transforms into this compassionate hero, right? He's still gruff, still hesitant.
Oh yeah, he's definitely not winning any Spaced Out of the Year awards anytime soon.
But there are these subtle shifts in his behavior, little cracks in that tough exterior.
Like when he takes the time to explain things to Aeliana, to share some of his hard-won knowledge.
It's almost as if he's starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, letting someone in isn't a sign of weakness.
And for Aeliana, she's undergoing her own transformation, isn't she?
Absolutely. She's gone from this wide-eyed innocent to someone who's witnessed the brutality of Nullsec firsthand.
It's a harsh awakening, but it's also forcing her to grow, to adapt.
She's learning that survival in Nullsec requires more than just luck and idealism. It takes skill, cunning, and a willingness to make tough choices.
And she's getting a crash course in all of that from Vaylin, whether he intends to be a mentor or not.
It's like they're both on these parallel journeys, but their paths have converged. And that intersection is creating these sparks of change in both of them.
And it raises this question, can they both retain those sparks as they continue navigating the darkness of Nullsec?
It's a question that lingers long after you finish reading the chapter. It makes you think about the balance between hope and pragmatism, between holding on to your ideals and accepting the harsh realities of the world.
It's a theme that resonates far beyond the confines of this story, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We've all faced those moments where we've had to reconcile our hopes and dreams with the often disappointing truth of things.
It's like the author is saying, look, life, even in space, is complicated. There's no easy answers, no clear-cut good guys and bad guys.
And that's what makes the Lone Capsuleer so compelling. It doesn't shy away from those complexities. It presents these flawed, relatable characters trying to find their way in a universe that's constantly testing them.
And in doing so, it invites us to reflect on our own journeys, our own choices, and the delicate balance we all strive for between hope and reality.
And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into A Glimmer of Light. It's been a fascinating journey, filled with twists and turns, and I'm sure it's left us all with plenty to ponder.
As always, thank you for joining us on this exploration of the Lone Capsuleer. And until next time, keep looking for those glimmers of light, even in the darkest corners of the universe.